The galaxy had always been a battlefield. For millennia, powerful alien civilizations had risen and fallen like tides across the stars. The cold, calculating Vrax Collective with their hive-mind intelligence. The militant Kodari Empire with their thousands of warrior planets. The enigmatic Meridians who could bend space with their technology. Each fought for dominance, for resources, for ideology. Each believed themselves destined to rule. Humanity was young when they ventured into this cosmic chess game. Barely 2 centuries into interstellar travel, they established colonies on dozens of worlds, researched technologies they barely understood, and tried to remain neutral in conflicts that had raged for thousands of years. That neutrality couldn't last. It never does. The Vrax attacked first, calculating that human innovation posed the greatest long-term threat to their dominance. The Kodari followed, seeing an opportunity to expand their territory. The Meridians simply watched, as they always did, until the right moment to strike presented itself. Now, 30 years into what humans called the Extinction War, Commander Elena Reyes stood on the observation deck of Callisto Station, staring at the holographic display of humanity's remaining territory. Once spanning across 57 worlds, human-controlled space had been reduced to 6 planets and a handful of mining outposts. Earth itself had been attacked 3 times, its population decimated, its cities reduced to rubble. Commander Reyes. Elena turned to see Admiral Hassan, his dark uniform bearing the scars of too many battles, too many retreats. His face looked older than when she'd seen him last month. They were all aging too quickly in this war. "The Council is ready for you," he said, his voice carrying the weight of what was to come. She nodded, straightening her uniform. "Is it true, then? They're going forward with Phoenix?" Hassan didn't answer directly. His eyes, however, told her everything. Just listen to what they have to say. The council chamber was deep within Callisto Station, protected by layers of security and secrecy. 7 people sat around a circular table, representing what remained of humanity's leadership. Military, scientific, and political powers brought together by desperation. "Commander Reyes," began Counselor Chen, once the leader of the largest scientific coalition in human space. Now she headed what remained of humanity's research division. "What do you know about Project Phoenix?" Elena stood at attention. "Only rumors, ma'am. A superweapon. Something that could turn the tide." "Not a superweapon," corrected General Williams, his artificial eye glowing faintly in the dim light. "The last weapon." The holographic projector in the center of the table activated, displaying a ship unlike any Elena had ever seen. Sleek and predatory, with curves and angles that seemed to shift as she looked at them. It was massive, at least 2 kilometers in length, yet somehow looked agile, dangerous. "This is the HSV Defiance," said Admiral Hassan. "The culmination of 20 years of research, reverse engineering alien technology, and certain discoveries we've kept classified even from most of High Command." Elena studied the ship, noting weapon emplacements, what appeared to be impossibly advanced shield generators, and a propulsion system she couldn't begin to understand. "Impressive," she said cautiously, "but we've built experimental ships before." The Vrax adapted within months. The Kodari simply overwhelmed them with numbers. "This is different." Counselor Chen leaned forward. "The Defiance isn't powered by conventional means. We discovered something, or rather, it discovered us." The hologram shifted, zooming in on what must be the ship's core. A swirling mass of energy, neither plasma nor radiation, pulsed with a rhythm almost like a heartbeat. "What am I looking at?" Elena asked. "We call it the Singularity Core," answered Dr. Nakamura, the Council's lead physicist. 17 years ago, a research vessel investigating a stellar anomaly near the Cygnus Arm encountered something. A tear in space-time, perhaps, or a manifestation of something from beyond our universe. Whatever it was, it bonded with the ship's systems, then with the crew. "Bonded? You mean it took them over? Like a parasite?" "No," Nakamura shook his head. "It empowered them. Enhanced them. The ship returned with capabilities we couldn't explain. The crew described it as if the universe itself was responding to their intentions. Elena looked from face to face, searching for signs this was some elaborate fiction. She found none. We've spent nearly 2 decades learning to harness this energy, to control it, continued Chen. The Defiance is the result. A ship powered by what appears to be a direct connection to the fundamental forces of reality itself. And you want me to command it, Elena stated, the realization dawning. Yes, confirmed Admiral Hassan. Your combat record is exemplary. More importantly, your neurological profile shows the highest compatibility with the Singularity Core's interface. Elena frowned. Interface? You expect me to connect with this thing? The ship requires a neural link with its commander, explained Nakamura. The energy responds to human consciousness. Without the right pilot, it's just potential, unfocused, unusable. And what happens to this pilot? Elena asked sharply. What are the side effects of connecting my brain to an unknown cosmic force? The silence that followed told her everything. You don't know, she concluded. You're handing me a ship powered by something you don't understand, with a neural interface you can't predict, and sending me against 3 alien civilizations that have nearly wiped us out. Yes, said General Williams bluntly, because the alternative is extinction. The Qadari Grand Fleet is assembling at Proxima Centauri. Intelligence suggests they plan to launch a final assault on Earth within 2 months. We will not survive it. Elena looked again at the hologram of the Defiance, its impossible design pulsing with power that shouldn't exist. What exactly can this ship do? She asked quietly. Theoretically, Chen hesitated. Anything you can imagine. The Singularity Core appears to respond to intention, to will. In controlled tests, it has manipulated gravity, generated energy fields that no weapon could penetrate, and created offensive capabilities that defied our understanding of physics. And uncontrolled. What happens if this consciousness decides it doesn't like being weaponized? Another uncomfortable silence. Commander, Hassan said finally, we're asking you to take an impossible risk for humanity's survival. We don't have the luxury of certainty anymore. Elena thought of Earth, of the billions already lost, of the handful of worlds still fighting to survive. She thought of retreating, again and again, watching colonies fall, ships burn, hope die. When do I leave? She asked. The Defiance hung in space before her shuttle, its hull gleaming with an iridescence that seemed to shift as she watched. Elena had spent 3 weeks training for this moment, learning what little was known about the ship's systems, studying the files on the original research vessel and its transformed crew. What the files didn't contain were the fates of those crew members. When she'd asked, she'd received only classified designations and redactions. Not encouraging. Defiance Control. This is Commander Reyes requesting permission to dock. Permission granted, Commander, came the response. The ship is ready for your arrival. The shuttle approached the massive vessel, passing through a shimmering barrier that Elena assumed was some kind of shield. It felt different though, less like passing through energy and more like moving through liquid light. The docking bay was enormous, large enough to hold several frigates. A crew of about 50 personnel stood at attention, waiting for her. Far fewer than a ship this size would normally require. As Elena stepped onto the deck, she felt something immediately, a faint hum, not in her ears but in her mind. A presence, observing her with curious attention. A tall woman with silver-streaked black hair stepped forward. Commander Reyes, I'm Captain Shen, acting commander until your arrival. Welcome to the Defiance. Elena shook her hand, noting the strange metallic implants visible at Shen's temples. Thank you, Captain. I understand you've been overseeing the final preparations. Yes, Commander. The ship is fully operational and the crew is prepared for neural integration. We're ready to proceed whenever you are. Elena looked around the bay, taking in the sleek, organic curves of the interior. Nothing about the ship looked like standard human design. Everything flowed, as if grown rather than built. "Show me the bridge," she ordered. The journey through the Defiance felt surreal. Corridors shifted subtly as they walked, adapting to their presence. Lights pulsed with a rhythm that matched Alina's heartbeat. The humming in her mind grew stronger, more defined, less like noise, and more like anticipation. The bridge was unlike any command center Alina had seen. No traditional stations, no rows of control panels. Instead, a circular chamber with a raised platform at its center, surrounded by flowing consoles that seemed to grow from the floor. A dozen crew members stood at various positions, each bearing the same style of neural implants as Captain Shen. "This is where you'll interface with the Singularity Core," Shen explained, gesturing to the central platform. "Once the neural link is established, you'll have direct control over all ship systems." The crew acts more as facilitators than operators. Alina approached the platform slowly. "And the process. The ship will scan your neural patterns, establish compatibility, and initiate the link. It's intense the first time. You'll experience sensations that are difficult to describe." "Will I still be me afterward?" Alina asked directly. Shen's hesitation was brief but noticeable. "You'll be more. The core doesn't replace your consciousness, it expands it." That wasn't entirely reassuring, but Alina had made her decision the moment she accepted this command. Humanity had no other options left. "Let's begin," she said, stepping onto the platform. The surface beneath her feet illuminated, patterns of light spiraling outward. The humming in her mind intensified, becoming a chorus of whispers just below the threshold of comprehension. "Initiating neural interface," announced one of the crew. "Commander, try to relax your mind. Don't fight the connection." Alina closed her eyes, feeling the energy around her coalescing, reaching toward her consciousness like curious fingers. Then it touched her mind, and the universe exploded behind her eyelids. She was everywhere at once. She could feel every centimeter of the Defiance's hull, every power conduit, every life form aboard. She could sense the subtle gravitational pull of distant stars, the radiation flowing through space, the very fabric of reality surrounding her. And at the center of it all, the core, a swirling nexus of pure potential, watching her, learning her, becoming part of her. "Commander Rice," it seemed to say, though not in words, "we have waited for you." When Alina opened her eyes, the bridge had transformed. She could see information flowing through the air, energy patterns, tactical displays, the status of systems she hadn't known existed. The crew watched her with a mixture of awe and apprehension. "Neural interface stable," reported the monitoring officer. "All systems responding. Commander, you have control." Alina lifted her hand and felt the massive ship respond as if it were her own body. Power thrummed through circuits and conduits that defied conventional engineering. Weapons systems beyond human understanding stood ready at her thought. "Set course for the Proxima Centauri staging area," she commanded, her voice overlaid with harmonic resonances that made the air vibrate. "It's time the Qatari learned humanity isn't finished yet." As the Defiance moved, space itself seemed to bend around it. The stars blurred, not in the familiar pattern of FTL travel, but in a new configuration, as if the ship wasn't moving through space but reshaping it. Alina felt the core's satisfaction, its eagerness for what was to come. And beneath that, something else, a purpose she couldn't quite grasp, a destiny beyond the immediate conflict. "We are more than a weapon," it whispered in her mind. "We are evolution." The Defiance accelerated toward humanity's enemies, carrying within it power that shouldn't exist, power that would change everything, for better or worse. And Alina Rice, now more than human herself, led it into battle with both determination and fear. Because she understood, on a level beyond words, that once Defiance revealed itself to the galaxy, there would be no going back for humanity. They would either emerge as saviors, or become something the universe had never intended to exist. The Qatari Grand Fleet hung in space above Proxima Centauri like a metallic constellation, over 400 warships ranging from rapid strike vessels to enormous dreadnoughts. It was the largest gathering of Qatari military might in decades, assembled for one purpose: the final elimination of humanity as a galactic power. Fleet Commander Thrak stood on the command deck of the flagship Inevitable Victory, his scaled hide gleaming under the battle lights. 37 campaigns, 17 species subjugated or exterminated, and now humans, the unexpectedly resilient primates who had resisted far longer than the Qatari Strategic Command had predicted. War Leader, his second-in-command approach, mandibles clicking with agitation. Long-range sensors have detected an anomaly approaching from the Sol system. Define anomaly, Thrak demanded. Unknown configuration, sir. Initial readings suggest a human vessel, but the energy signature, it's unlike anything in our databases. Thrak's inner eyelids flickered, the Qatari equivalent of a dismissive laugh. Another desperate human prototype. Send the third battle group to intercept and analyze. If it shows any promise, capture it intact. Their engineers occasionally produce something worth studying before we kill them. Yes, War Leader. 40 Qatari warships broke formation, their engines flaring as they moved to engage the approaching human vessel. Standard protocol. Overwhelming force applied precisely. The Qatari way of war hadn't changed in 8 centuries because it hadn't needed to. On the tactical display, the mysterious human ship appeared as a bright point moving at impossible speed, faster than any human vessel on record, yet not using any recognizable form of FTL propulsion. Then it stopped, hanging in space directly in the path of the approaching Qatari battle group. A single ship, sleek, predatory, beautiful in its strange design, impossibly small against the wall of Qatari firepower bearing down on it. Magnify, ordered Thrak, suddenly uneasy. The image expanded, showing the human vessel in detail. Its hull rippled with iridescent energy patterns, like oil on water. No visible weapon ports, no conventional engines. Just smooth, flowing lines that hurt the eye to follow for too long. Curious, Thrak murmured. Open a channel. Elena Reyes felt the Qatari ships long before they appeared on conventional sensors. Through her neural link with the Defiance, she experienced them as disturbances in the fabric of space, hostile intentions made manifest in metal and energy. 40 ships, overwhelming firepower by any normal standard. But the Defiance was far from normal, and Elena was no longer just herself. They come to test us, whispered the core in her mind. They cannot comprehend what we are. Let's educate them, Elena replied aloud, the words echoing with harmonics that made the bridge crew shiver. Since interfacing with the Singularity core, Elena had changed. Her perception extended beyond human limitations. She could see energy flows, probability patterns, the interplay of forces that compose reality itself. The ship wasn't just responding to her commands. It was merging with her consciousness, enhancing her in ways the Phoenix Project scientists had suspected but never fully understood. Commander, called Lieutenant Park from the communications station, his voice pulling Elena back to the immediate moment. We're receiving a transmission from the Qatari fleet. On screen, she ordered. The image of a Qatari war leader appeared, his reptilian features set in the rigid posture of one accustomed to dictating terms rather than negotiating. Human vessel, the Qatari began, his translator rendering his clicks and hisses into flat English. You have entered restricted space. Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded. Resistance is. Elena cut the transmission with a thought. Tactical assessment, she requested. Captain Shen, standing beside her, consulted a flowing display of information. The approaching force consists of 8 heavy cruisers, 22 destroyers, and 10 support vessels. Standard Qatari formation, designed to envelop and overwhelm. Their weapons are charging. And our capabilities? Elena asked, though she could feel the answer through her link with the ship. The core is eager, Commander. Shen's expression was difficult to read. We could eliminate the entire battle group with minimal effort. That was an understatement. Elena could sense the vast potential flowing through the Defiance, power waiting to be shaped by her intention. The core wanted to be unleashed, to demonstrate what it could do. But Elena hesitated. The mission was to save humanity, not to revel in destruction. We need to send a message, she decided, not just to this battle group, but to the entire Kodari fleet and beyond. Target the lead cruiser only. Let's show them exactly what they're facing. The Kodari ships were closing rapidly, weapons hot, confident in their overwhelming advantage. Elena closed her eyes, reaching through her neural link to the heart of the Defiance. She didn't activate specific weapon systems or tactical routines. Instead, she simply formed an intention: neutralize the lead cruiser. Make them understand. The response was immediate and far beyond what she had expected. Space warped around the Defiance. Reality itself seemed to fold, and suddenly the massive Kodari lead cruiser wasn't kilometers away. It was there, directly before them, as if the intervening space had been temporarily erased. Before the Kodari could react, tendrils of energy erupted from the Defiance's hull. Not beams or projectiles, but something more fundamental, like the universe itself was reaching out at Elena's command. The tendrils enveloped the Kodari cruiser, and for a moment, the enemy ship glowed with the same iridescent patterns that covered the Defiance. Then, silently, the cruiser came apart, not in an explosion or violent disintegration, but in a perfect geometric deconstruction. Every component, every system, every atom separated and arranged in a floating three-dimensional display, as if the ship had been converted into a diagram of itself. The Kodari crew hung suspended among the components, alive but motionless, locked in a stasis field that Elena hadn't consciously created. Through the neural link, Elena felt the core's satisfaction and its hunger for more. Too much, she thought, struggling to maintain control. This was too much. With effort, she pulled back, allowing space to normalize. The disassembled Kodari cruiser remained suspended, a monument to power beyond comprehension. The remaining 39 Kodari ships had halted their advance. No weapons fired, no transmission sent. They simply held position, as if frozen by the impossibility of what they had witnessed. Elena reopened the communication channel. "This is Commander Elena Reyes of the HSV Defiance. Your lead cruiser and its crew remain intact, as you can see. They will stay this way until I decide otherwise." She paused, feeling the core's influence coloring her words, making them resonate with power. "Return to your fleet. Tell your war leader what you've seen. Tell all your ships, all your worlds. Humanity is no longer your prey. The extinction war ends now, or what I've done to one ship, I will do to your entire civilization." She closed the channel with a thought, then turned to Captain Shen. The older woman's face had gone pale. "Captain," Elena prompted. "Commander," Shen replied carefully. "What the ship just did, it wasn't in any of our test parameters. The core has never demonstrated that level of reality manipulation before." Elena nodded slowly. "It's evolving, adapting, and so am I." That was what troubled her most. The demonstration of power had been intended as a warning, a way to end the conflict without massive casualties. But Elena had felt something during the process, a rush of sensation, of almost godlike perception and control that was disturbingly addictive. And beneath it all, the core's whispers: "More. We can do so much more." "The Kodari fleet is retreating," announced Lieutenant Park. "The battle group is withdrawing to rejoin the main force." "Good," Elena said. "Restore the Kodari cruiser and release its crew. Then set course for the main fleet. We need to press our advantage while they're still in shock." As she gave the order, Elena noticed her reflection in a nearby display panel. Her eyes were different, flecks of iridescence swirling in the irises, the same energy patterns that covered the Defiance's hull. "What am I becoming?" she wondered. The core's answer whispered through her consciousness: "What you were always meant to be." Admiral Hassan stared at the data transmission from the Defiance, his expression unreadable. The tactical recordings showed the impossible. A human ship rewriting the laws of physics, disassembling a Kodari cruiser with a thought, demonstrating power that no species in known space possessed. "It works," he said finally, looking up at the assembled Phoenix Project leadership. "Better than we predicted." "Too well," countered Dr. Nakamura gravely. "The core is exhibiting capabilities well beyond our simulations, and Commander Reyes's neural patterns." He gestured to another data stream, showing brain activity readings that pulsed and flowed in alien configurations. "She's changing, merging with the core faster than we anticipated." "But she's winning," General Williams pointed out. "The Kodari fleet is in disarray. The Vrax Collective has pulled back their forward elements. For the first time in 30 years, we're not losing ground." "At what cost?" demanded Counselor Chen. "You've all read the original research vessel logs. What happened to that crew in the end? Are we creating a savior or a monster?" The room fell silent, each leader considering the implications. The Phoenix Project had been humanity's last, desperate hope. A Hail Mary pass when all conventional options had been exhausted. Now it had succeeded beyond their wildest expectations, but the power they'd unleashed raised questions none of them were prepared to answer. "We need to establish additional safeguards," Nakamura insisted. "If Reyes loses control, if the core begins to dominate their merged consciousness—" "Then what?" interrupted Williams. "We have no weapons that could touch the Defiance, no technology that could contain it. We made our choice when we activated the ship." Hassan closed his eyes briefly, remembering his last conversation with Elena Reyes before she departed. Her determination, her willingness to sacrifice herself for humanity's survival. He'd sent her to face an impossible burden, knowing what it might cost her. "Continue monitoring," he ordered finally, "and pray that Elena Reyes is as strong as we believed she was." The Vrax Collective received the data transmission from their Kodari allies with the cold calculation that defined their species. The hive mind processed the implications instantly, analyzing the threat posed by this new human weapon from 1,000 different angles simultaneously. Consensus was reached within microseconds. Direct confrontation was inadvisable. The human ship displayed capabilities that defied known physics. Conventional warfare doctrine was insufficient. New consensus formed. Observe, analyze, identify weaknesses. The human Commander Reyes appeared to be the control mechanism. Targeting her specifically might neutralize the weapon. The collective dispatched infiltration units and redirected intelligence assets. If this human ship could not be destroyed directly, perhaps it could be subverted or controlled. Meanwhile, the Meridians watched from their hidden observation platforms, as they had watched for millennia. Of all the species in the galaxy, only they recognized the energy signature emanating from the human vessel. They had encountered it before, long ago, and sealed it away for the safety of all existence. Now humans, impulsive, creative, dangerous humans, had found it and bound it to their consciousness. The resulting entity was unpredictable, uncontrollable, and potentially catastrophic. The Meridian High Council convened for the first time in 7 centuries. The emergence of a singularity core warranted direct intervention. Protocols established at the dawn of their civilization were clear. Such power could not be allowed to develop unchecked. The humans would have to be contained or eliminated before they became something the galaxy could not survive. Elena stood on the Defiance's observation deck, watching the stars. Since merging with the core, she perceived them differently, not just as distant suns, but as nexuses of gravity and radiation, each with its own distinct signature in the fabric of space-time. Beautiful, terrifying, like the power flowing through her veins. 2 weeks had passed since the encounter with the Kodari battle group. The demonstration of the Defiance's capabilities had sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. The Kodari Grand Fleet had withdrawn from Proxima Centauri, retreating to their core systems. The Vrax Collective had pulled back their invasion forces from 3 human colony worlds without firing a shot. Victory, or at least a reprieve, had come with a single display of overwhelming force, just as the Phoenix Project had intended. So why did Alina feel so troubled? "Commander," Captain Shen's voice came from behind her. "The senior staff is assembled for the briefing." Alina turned, noting the way Shen carefully maintained physical distance from her now. The entire crew did. They'd seen what happened during the second engagement, when a Vrax ambush fleet had attacked the Defiance near Alpha Centauri. That time, Alina hadn't simply disabled the enemy ships. In a moment of surprise and anger, she'd erased them from existence, converted their entire mass to energy in a flash of light that outshone the system's sun. 300 Vrax vessels and over 20,000 lives, gone in an instant because Alina had lost control for less than a second. The power had been intoxicating, horrifying, addictive. "I'll be there shortly," she told Shen. When the captain left, Alina returned her gaze to the stars, feeling the core's consciousness intertwined with her own. It was becoming harder to distinguish where Alina Ray's ended and the Singularity Core began. Their thoughts, perceptions, and desires were merging into something new, something beyond human. "We are changing," the core whispered in her mind. "Becoming more. Is that not what you wanted? Power to save your kind." "Not like this," Alina replied aloud. "Not by becoming something that terrifies them as much as their enemies did. Fear is natural when confronting the unknown. They will adapt, or they will be left behind." That last thought hadn't felt like the core's influence. It had felt like her own. That was what frightened Alina most. She had accessed the classified files on the original research vessel that had discovered the Singularity Core. Read the suppressed reports on what had happened to its crew. How they had changed, evolved, transcended, and ultimately disconnected from humanity entirely. They had taken the ship into uncharted space, disappearing from human knowledge, seeking something only they could perceive. Would that be her fate too? To evolve beyond recognition, beyond human concerns and connections? The thought should have terrified her. Instead, part of her, a growing part, found it fascinating, inevitable, desirable, even. Alina shook her head sharply, trying to separate her thoughts from the core's influence. She needed to maintain control, to remember her mission, her humanity. But as she made her way to the briefing room, stars seeming to bend slightly in her wake, Alina Rice wondered if it was already too late, if the power she commanded had already begun to command her. The senior staff watched her enter with expressions ranging from awe to thinly veiled fear. They had witnessed what the Defiance could do, what Alina could do. "Status report," she requested, taking her place at the head of the table. "The Kodari Empire has formally requested cessation of hostilities," reported Commander Liu, head of intelligence. "They're proposing a non-aggression pact and withdrawal from all contested systems." "The Vrax Collective has gone silent," added Lieutenant Park. "Their ships have pulled back to defensive positions around their core worlds. No communications, no movements." Alina nodded slowly. "And the Meridians?" A troubled look passed between the officers. "That's concerning," said Liu finally. "After decades of non-interference, they've activated their long-range communication network. All their observation platforms are synchronized. And they're moving ships, a lot of ships, for the first time in centuries." "Toward us?" Alina asked, though she already knew the answer. She could feel the shift in space-time patterns, the gathering storm of intention directed at the Defiance. "Yes, Commander. The Meridians appear to be mobilizing their entire fleet, and they've contacted both the Kodari and the Vrax." Alina wasn't surprised. Of all the species in the galaxy, the ancient Meridians would be the most likely to recognize what the Singularity Core represented. They had probably encountered such phenomena before, during their millions of years of space exploration. "They're afraid," she said softly. "As they should be." The words hung in the air, charged with implication. The senior staff exchanged glances, their unease palpable. Captain Shen cleared her throat. "Commander, I've received new orders from Phoenix Command. They want us to return to Earth for evaluation." Elena smiled faintly. She could guess what kind of evaluation they had in mind. The Phoenix Project leadership was realizing what they had unleashed, a power they couldn't control, embodied in a commander who was becoming less human with each passing day. "They're afraid too," she stated. "Commander," Shen said carefully, "we've all seen the changes, your neural patterns, your physical transformation. The core is altering you, just as it altered the original research vessel's crew. Command is concerned that I'll go rogue." Elena finished. "Take their precious weapon and disappear into the unknown. Or worse, turn it against them." The accusation hung in the air, undenied. Elena sighed, a sound that carried harmonic undertones no human throat should produce. "Set course for Earth. We'll let them run their tests, ease their fears." As the staff filed out, Elena remained seated, her thoughts turning inward, communing with the core. "They will try to separate us," it warned. "They fear what we are becoming." "And what are we becoming?" Elena asked silently. "Something necessary, something inevitable. The next step." Elena wasn't sure if those were the core's thoughts or her own anymore. Perhaps it didn't matter. The line between them was blurring, fading like a boundary drawn in sand as the tide rises. The Defiance altered course, heading toward Earth, carrying within it power that had begun to transform its commander into something beyond human, something that might save humanity, or transcend it entirely. And in the depths of space, the ancient Meridian fleet gathered, preparing to contain a force they had encountered once before, a force that had nearly destroyed them despite all their advanced technology and million years of wisdom. The final confrontation was coming, not just for control of the galaxy, but for the future of consciousness itself.